Hey guys, so I'm taking you on a little trip around the yard. I am carrying, it rained, so I'm just walking around here barefooted, but I'm carrying an urn. We've had a death on the farm, kombucha, SCOBY death, and I'm going to dump it in the compost and show you what mold looks like on my kombucha culture. So I had a couple oranges for lunch with the baby, so I'm going to toss those in my tomato garden. My little tomatoes are popping up. I don't know if you can see this guy. They're doing really good. I only lost a couple of them after the big rain when I put them in the ground because they're really small. But all right, so we're walking back over here. This compost bucket is one that we just dump like spent mushroom blocks in. So it's essentially our composted mushroom soil. You can see the grain here. There's cocoa coir and grain. So usually my husband only flushes the blocks one time, and then he may soak them and leave them sit and see if we get any more mushrooms from them. So usually the second flush on mushrooms isn't as good as the first anyway. So sometimes they'll just come in here and they'll live in this compost bucket, and I'll come out here and find like surprise mushrooms. So you might be wondering why there's a pine tree in my compost, but this is a Norfolk pine. I got it I think in December, and it did great during the winter up until the very end of winter, and it started turning brown. It looked fried, but it's a pine tree, so it shouldn't be fried. So we pulled it up and I brought it back here and put it in the mushroom compost until I can decide exactly how to try to take care of the darn thing, if I can nurse it back to life. So we're gonna try. All right, so here is kombucha. I took a class 2 weeks ago at a local farm. They're doing this kombucha class, and with it you got a culture. So kombucha is made with a SCOBY. I'm trying to shoot the bottom here to see if you can see it growing across the bottom. The culture is called a SCOBY. The SCOBY is in there it is. You can see it there. It's an acronym. It stands for a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. So a normal looking SCOBY, this clear bit, oops, I'm trying to, there we go, is usually this clear. There's nothing fuzzy or discolored on it. Now, most SCOBYs, they are not cute. Like, they do look funky. But this one, if I could zoom in, has a blue culture here to the one on the right. It's turning like a blue-green color. And the other one is fuzzy. So if you look at it pretty closely at an angle, which you're not going to be able to see well on camera, it's fuzzy, it's discolored, it's growing on the surface of this fresh SCOBY. So that indicates that it is mold and it is not healthy SCOBY. So because of that, we have to ditch the whole thing. Luckily, when I did the kombucha class, I purchased 2 SCOBYs because I just had this sneaky suspicion that I might mess one of them up. I think that this one may not have been as sterilized when I was actually brewing the tea. I did not bring the water up to a rapid boil with the sugar in the water. I forgot to put the sugar in. That was kind of an afterthought, because when we make tea here at the house, we don't put sugar in the pot. We put it in the pitcher and dump the tea over into it. So anyway, I got sidetracked and forgot to put the sugar in. And I don't know if I had it water boiling rapid enough. So I'm gonna do it a little bit differently. I'm gonna do it like I did my other culture, because my other culture doesn't have any contamination. There's nothing fuzzy or blue growing on it. So I'm going to make sure I do a better job when I separate the SCOBY in the other culture, because unfortunately now we can't drink this guy because of the mold. If you don't know, kombucha is a like living beverage. It is full of like bacterias, microscopic organisms. I guess people don't like the word bacteria. So it's full of organisms that are healthy gut bacteria. It introduces these organisms back into your digestive system, and there are many, many health benefits to consuming kombucha on a daily basis. And you can look those up. I'm not making any claims, but personally, since I've started doing it, I have noticed a better mood, a more energy, more of a willingness to kind of get my day going. I feel a little bit more motivated, and with that, has come a little bit more energy, and my husband and I have been able to be more active, and which has promoted weight loss. And I'm not saying that it's all 100% thanks to starting kombucha, but it's definitely a great beverage, and one that I liked so much that I decided I wanted to learn how to grow it. Make it myself. So anyway, this SCOBY, because it's still a living organism, even with a little bit of mold, it is going to be great for the compost. So anytime you're growing kombucha culture SCOBY, and let's say you're ready to divide your SCOBY, and you're going to keep the mother SCOBY, make another batch, but you don't need any additional SCOBY, you can throw it straight into your compost, and the living organisms inside this culture are going to help promote plant health, and whatever plants that are exposed to the soil or you're using the soil with, they're going to be able to absorb nutrients better, and ultimately those microscopic organisms are going to benefit the plant also. So I'm going to go ahead and get this dumped over, and then I'm going to meet you back inside, and we're going to brew up another batch. So I made it back in the kitchen, and I was going to show you a healthy kombucha culture, healthy SCOBY. I have it covered up because it's not supposed to be exposed to light too much. You can see the original SCOBY floating here. It does not matter where in the vessel that the SCOBY floats. It can live along the bottom, on the top. No matter where it is in the batch, it's going to produce new SCOBY along the top. And I'm not going to pull the cheesecloth off because I do not want to risk exposing my SCOBY to any microorganisms. I don't want it contaminated. I already had to have one funeral today. I don't want another. But as you can see, compared to the SCOBY urn, there's no fuzzy patches on this. It's just a really pretty clean sheet of culture here. So this little guy's gonna live on the counter. I brewed it on the 30th, so I'm gonna bottle it sometime between the 10th and the 13th. I'm just gonna cover it back up and move it here. So the next culture I'm doing is a JUN Kombucha. I bought it from Kombucha Camp. The JUN is a little different than traditional kombucha. They send this really great information sheet with it. I have never actually drank JUN before, but I wanted to give it a shot anyway because apparently it's a healthier option than kombucha, because unlike traditional kombucha that's brewed in black tea and sugar, because the SCOBY in traditional kombucha feeds on caffeine in the fermentation, oxidization of the black tea leaf and the sugar. JUN is a culture that lives on honey and a green tea leaf. So because it has raw honey, it has different properties than traditional kombucha, and there is a lot of claims on the internet that JUN has more healthful or is more beneficial for your health. But I think either way, as long as you're drinking kombucha and you're adding those active cultures back into your gut, your overall improving your health, improving your gut bacteria, which boosts your immune system, can boost your mood, can help with allergies and acne and weight gain issues, help control blood sugar, blood pressure, just the whole 9 yards. So I am getting my JUN ready. All right, so more in Kombucha Camp. I only ordered the JUN culture. It comes in this double sealed packaging. So much information. I didn't order any green tea because I have tons of tea around this place, but they did send me a free sample, which was really nice. And I have some of this Bancha green tea coming, and I have organic jasmine green tea. So now that I know these are options for JUN, I'll start playing around with some green tea blends. So per the Kombucha Camp instructions, I have a pot on the stove. I just brought the water to boil, and I turned the heat off, and I set a timer for 2 minutes so that it can cool. My best guess is, because I didn't explain why you do that, but my best guess is because black tea leaf and other herbs and flowers, you can steep them in boiling water, but if you do that with green tea, it will literally burn the leaf. It tastes so bitter and it's really gross. I was making that mistake myself until I learned proper steeping temperatures. So green tea, you do not want to steep it in temperatures more than 135, 140 degrees or it'll burn. So I have the pot, the timer's going off now. I'm going to get it off the stove, bring it over. We're going to add the green tea, and it's going to steep for 10 to 15 minutes. And then we're going to move on to the next step into our newly sterilized kombucha house here. And I sterilized this spoon as well. Shameless plug, seeing as how this is sitting in the way on the counter. This is a zip top. These are made in the US. Sterilizable, these silicone snack packs. This one's dirty because we had it full of snacks on our bike ride today. But these are absolutely amazing. You don't need lids. They come in a bunch of different colors, and you just pinch them closed like a Ziploc, and they stay closed. They're pretty cool. Like I said, this one needs to be washed because we were using it today. But zip top, if you have not ever used zip top, check them out. All right, I'll be right back. All right, so this is the reusable tea bag that Kombucha Camp sent their green tea blend in. I'm going to put it right here in the hot water. This is going to steep per the instructions for 7 to 15 minutes. So I'm going to let the green tea steep here. One of the things I wanted to show you are these reusable cloth bags. Obviously this is stained from tea. We use this for our black tea when we're brewing tea like to consume here at the house. We probably fill this about 1/3 full of loose leaf tea. So you could make 2 gallons comfortably in one of these tea bags, and then you just rinse it out and you reuse it. So we have a little drying rack, and our reusable tea bags sit on that drying rack until we're ready to make another gallon of tea. I prefer this method because well, some very common tea brands, I won't name any names, actually became under fire, and there's class action lawsuit against them because they were mislabeling their organic teas. They were claiming that they were organic, no chemicals, la-di-da-di-da. Well, that was true for the tea, but it wasn't true for the tea bags. And when steeped, the cup of tea actually contained hundreds of synthetic chemicals and pesticides from the actual manufacturing process of the tea bags itself. So tea bags like Lipton, Celestial, and brands like that use those one-time use tea bags. I just don't like them. My daughter just dropped her bottle on the floor, so I'm going to go pick that up. I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. So, again, in an effort to reduce waste and to eat cleaner, consume less chemicals, we use reusable tea bags. So what I did while she was still figuring herself out was added 10 cups of purified water. This and this are going to be combined with the honey. When this is done steeping, I still have about 9.5 minutes left on the steep. In the future, I think I may boil the water and let it cool and do it that way, since how we do have well water. I don't really see the need to purchase purified water. We don't have any added chemicals, no fluoride, calcium, or any heavy metals. But I will boil it so that it is clean water and it's killed any, microscopic organisms that might be living in the well. But I think that I'm going to start with the purified water so that my culture has the best chance of survival while I'm still, working out my process. So I'm going to measure out the raw honey next. I'm going to use 1 cup of raw honey. I'm going to add it straight to this mixture, stir it around, hence why the spoon was also sterilized. And then once our tea is done steeping, I'm going to combine it, and I'll show you what that looks like before adding the culture. All right, I think we're ready to mix everything together. I am using this palmetto raw honey. This is a local apiary. 1 cup. It says 3/4 to 1 cup. I'm going to use 1 cup because I know some of the honey is going to stick in this, and I'll probably heat it up and use it in some tea before I go to bed tonight. And then as you can see here, the water is like light greenish yellow now, and the tea bag itself is thicker because the tea leaves are reconstituted, they've expanded. So this is about 4 cups of water that was brought to a boil. I turned the heat off, I let it sit for 2 minutes to cool so that the tea leaf didn't get burned, and it is just over 15 minutes since it's been steeping. It's still warm to touch, but it's not boiling. So I'm going to use this sterilized spoon here. It's very hard to do one-handed. I was going to try to press it against the side of the dish to get any of the tea out. There we go. And then that didn't work. Hold on. Okay, we're pretty low tech here, guys. Like, I am holding the phone for these videos. I don't really have like fancy lighting or anything like that. Any extra funds we have goes straight into plants. But I'm adding the green tea. Oh, look at that. It's beautiful. Beautiful. And now I'm going to add the honey. You do not want to add the honey when the water is too hot. It'll basically cook some of those organisms, those beneficial organisms that you want from the honey to feed your culture. It kind of defeats the whole purpose of using raw honey if you end up cooking all those organisms out. So this is going to take a minute because I want to get all of this precious raw honey, and then we're going to add the culture. Alright, so I re-sterilized my little spoon here because I laid it down on the counter, and I didn't want to have picked up any like organisms that might have been on the counter. So what I did was I filled this up to the 2 cup. I put it in the microwave for 3 minutes. At that point the water is boiling hot. I ran it over the spoon, and then I also put my scissors in here. I'm going to use this to cut open the culture bag. I just want them to be as clean as possible. I just want my little experiment here to have its best chances of survival. So the honey is going to kind of settle towards the bottom because it is so dense, but the culture may even live down there for a little while too, so it's still going to be able to feed the culture. So I'm just going to stir it. I'm going to try to get it as mixed together as possible. I also cut this cloth. This cloth was bleached in the last little laundry, so it's clean. I cut it down to size. I'm going to use this over the entire container as a lid, so to speak, so the culture will still have oxygen, but it's tightly woven to prevent any critters from getting inside. So I'm gonna stir this a little bit here. There's some green tea leaf floating in it. I'm just going to leave it because it was obviously up to a boil, and this is a first fermentation anyway, so everything in this culture is going to be fermented, and then the whole thing is going to be divided into multiple jars, and it's going to go into a second fermentation, and that second fermentation is then going to be strained into the cup that you drink out of. So any of the fruits or things that we use in the second fermentation, including the tea leaf that you see floating around in here, it's going to get strained out anyway. All right, so I got a helper for this part, and we're adding the culture to the mix. Don't mind the baby, she's all a part of the process. I don't want to spill it. Alright, we'll try not to splash. Slid right in there. Alright. And I'm going to cover this. I'm going to put a rubber band around it, and it's going to sit for 7 to 10 days. And then we will add our fruit and do a second fermentation. If you're interested in trying kombucha, trying to do it yourself, Kombucha Camp has been a good resource. I've also been on Cultures for Health. Recently, I've joined them on Facebook. They have a lot of good information. And there's tons of groups that you can join. Lots of information out there about growing your own cultures. All right. Thank you.